Hello, everybody, pips. Let's ensure we are in fact live.
Good
evening. Look, we are. We
There
didn't have to
are.
press any. Oh, goodness, peeps are here already.
All right. Okay. Cool beans.
Well, hello, Susan. Hello, Cass. Hello, Wendy. Hello, Laurie. Goodness gracious me.
Hello.
So you persuaded us to do it.
All right. So, my goodness, there's tons of books. So we might do this for quite some time. I think we'd love to read the Dion Fortune novels and things like that. There's so many things that we could do for book club. But we thought we might as well start out with something very familiar.
Hey, Donna.
So people who know us know that we are traditional witches and that we are Wiccan.
That we are.
And that we have our own Wiccan tradition called the Stuart tradition. That our lineage comes from Gardnerian and Alexandrian. That we are not eclectic.
Oh, no.
That we follow a Welsh Celtic pantheon.
You definitely could not call us eclectic.
And that our tradition has elements of high magic and druidry and craft of the wise. So we thought for the next few book clubs, because this might only take 3 or 4 book clubs, that we would start with this little tome. It's very short and sweet. Simply Wicca.
Subtle plug. You might as well start with one you wrote.
So that's where we're going to begin. So if you have a copy and you want to grab it and read along, you could. It's really written simply, but it isn't really a beginner's guide.
No.
So we thought we would read through this and then let people ask us questions, and we'll try to answer them as honestly as we can without having to kill you.
Without having to kill me?
Without having to,
Don't kill me.
A lot of times people ask me a question and I'll say, if I tell you, I'll have to kill you. So that's,
You mean people may possibly cross a line?
Right, no secrets.
Well,
no secrets.
yes.
But anyway, we thought we'd start here. And a lot of people that follow us on YouTube are definitely already part of our community. They've taken Craft of the Wise, which is our Not Your Get Witch Quick course that runs once a year. It starts every October.
It does, yeah.
Other people are part of our circle on Fridays, or even further up along into our tradition. But for anybody who's new or new to Wicca, or would like to see what traditional Wicca looks like, then they could watch this book club video and ask questions.
Absolutely.
Because certainly you could be a witch and not be Wiccan.
That is very true. Very true.
You could be a Christian witch.
Wendy says, what a great place to start. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
we
you.
thought, well, it's a little presumptuous, but
whatever.
But whatever.
Whatever.
All right.
Seeing as we had less than a day to plan this.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Hey, Shana, how are you?
All right.
All right. Thank you for joining us, good peeps.
I will read first, and we'll trade back and forth.
Why don't you?
And please chime in with questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. So first we have the preface, and it says, Becoming a Witch, the Journey Home.
That's very profound.
Many people say that when they find the craft, they feel like they're coming home. Whether you have been a witch for many years or are just now stepping onto this well-worn path, we hope that this book is of some service to you and to the ancient ones. Almost every time someone comes to this way of life, they liken it to a homecoming. They say such things as, I feel as if I'm remembering, not just learning. I can't believe someone would think that this way of life was evil or negative. Or they say things like, I have always known I was a little different. I could hear things. I could sense things. I just loved nature and animals and plants and trees. Some are content with walking their own path with no guides other than their spiritual ones. But for others, they seek more. They want to know the secrets and learn the mysteries within the setting of a group tradition. They want to become a witch in a more defined and structured way. Certainly there are folks practicing witchcraft from all walks of life. There are hedge witches and conjurers and even some Christian witches. But this book is for those witches who seek to become well versed in the craft of the wise. For witches that are Wiccans who aspire to follow a tradition mapped out on the well-worn path. They desire to reach out and touch those who have gone before them, those who are still a part of them, and those who are calling them to seek. Accordingly, we make no apologies for the fact that this book is written from the perspective of our own well-established tradition. We fully appreciate that this traditional, old-school Wicca will not appeal to everyone. But a lot of the information, including here, has been gleaned over many years that we've been walking this path, and some of it learned through bitter personal experience. Our own tradition is one of Celtic Wicca that honors a Welsh Brythonic pantheon. It has its roots in traditional Gardnerian and Alexandrian Wicca, but it has evolved to more fully combine the three overlapping branches: high magic, druidry, and witchcraft, which were, as you'll see in Chapter 1, the foundations upon which the relatively modern religion of Wicca was built. That said, in writing this book, we have endeavored to make the information it contains equally applicable to all Wiccans, no matter which variety of Wicca or particular pantheon speaks to you. As part of our commitment to our craft, we have taken an oath to preserve the well-worn path on which we walk, so it remains available for those who seek to follow. If we've done our job right, for long after we've shuffled off this mortal coil. Okay, sorry. While we cannot walk the path for you, you can't really get the experience without getting the experience. We very much hope that at least some of the information we provide will help you avoid a few of the potholes and pitfalls or wrong turns. Know this above all: to become a witch requires work. Lots of hard work. Learning, practice, teaching, and dedication. Be assured that this is neither an instant process nor a quick fix for a problem. If you have the courage to make the essay, it offers way more than a mere religion. It truly becomes a way of life.
Susan, try refreshing your thing. But if somebody could just put that in the chat, because I'm going to read on now. And
I can't see with my glasses.
Well, she's saying, did it start? And yeah, we've been gabbing for like 8 minutes. So hopefully somebody can throw that in the chat for Susan and let her know that it is working. Well, I assume it's working. Tell us we're working, people. It would be fun if we're just talking to ourselves, but it does say we have a perfect stream and it's all working. But hey, all right. The joys of technology. So, introduction, because it's always good to start with an introduction, isn't it? So, you want to be a witch. Or, at the very least, you're feeling drawn to learn more about the craft of the wise. Why else would you be holding this book in your hand? Before we dare take the first tentative step that begins this incredible and transformative journey, we have one extremely important question for you. Why? You may wonder why we consider your motives to be so important. Perhaps a brief explanation is warranted. Over the years, we've raised many witches in our tradition. People from all walks of life, and each with their own unique story to tell. Yet they all have one highly significant thing in common. They are there for the right reasons. If you are seeking to become a witch in the belief that it will give you power over others, perhaps to bring about the return of an errant lover, or exact cruel revenge upon someone who has caused you harm by way of injury, insult, or shame, then we respectfully request that you put this back on this book back on the shelf and make another selection. These are not the right reasons, and this is not the book you're looking for. So what are the right reasons? While one might be tempted to think of noble values and higher ideals that call out to the very soul of the initiate, the truth is something far humbler in origin. Simply put, something inside you has changed. It might be difficult to define precisely what it is, but things are definitely different. It's almost like you become aware of the part of you that is aware. You are becoming conscious of the way you perceive the world around you. You are beginning to realize that things are not necessarily as they appear, but that's not to say that they are otherwise. But there is certainly more to it than meets the eye. We term this awakening an initiation. In a similar vein to initiating an explosion, it is a profound and permanent change. It is not possible to unexplode a bomb once it has been detonated, nor is it possible for you to return to blissful ignorance by unknowing what you now know. This initiation is merely the start of the process. For some, it may be a sudden and momentous event. For the others, it is a more gradual process, akin to a gentle nagging or an itch you can't quite reach. Whatever form it takes, one thing is for sure. You will have questions, lots of questions. And thus begins your search for answers. Maddeningly, easy for me to say apparently. However, almost every answer you find is actually another question, or 6. You become the very epitome of the ancient Zen Buddhist saying, that which you are seeking is causing you to seek. It is certainly possible that this may become the source of immense frustration, just like the noble Prince Pui's ill-judged pursuit of Rhiannon in the first branch of the Mabinogi. The elusive prize remains beyond reach no matter how hard you try. Pui is so enraptured with the beautiful young maiden ambling leisurely ahead of him on horseback that he exhausts his own horse trying to catch up with her. No matter how hard he pushes his horse, he simply cannot catch up, even though her horse does anything more than an amble. So ease up, catch your breath, and relax for a moment. It's not just you against the world. There is help at hand. There are those who have trodden this well-worn path before you, and as preservers of the path they will gladly lend a guiding hand, perchance to help you see that it's possible to try too hard. One of the first gems of wisdom to be acquired by the initiate is not so much what to seek as where to look for it. Perhaps the mother of modern witchcraft, Doreen Valiente, summed it up best in her beautiful charge of the goddess. Know that the seeking and yearning will avail you not unless you know the mystery, for if that which you seek you find not within yourself, you will never find it without. It is evident that the journey of the initiate involves a voyage of self-discovery, but here's a word of warning. While this journey is undoubtedly highly rewarding if successfully completed, it can be both arduous and daunting. The craft of the wise is definitely not for the faint-hearted. In fact, it's fair to say that the path to becoming a witch is akin to a hero's journey. The road is long and hard. You will face adversity and loneliness, and your resolve will be constantly tested by the doubts that linger in the dark recesses of your mind. Yet it is a journey you must take if you are to be successful in your quest to become a witch. More importantly, it is a journey for which there are no shortcuts. You simply can't buy this, read that, do a couple of things, and collect your badge. You have to do the work. And you have to do it yourself. Ours is a mystery tradition. You cannot learn about the mysteries simply by reading a book or attending a course. The mysteries can only be experienced, not taught, and you must experience them for yourself. This is a journey you must take for yourself, even if it is fraught with difficulty and danger. You will no doubt experience highs, lows, tragedies and triumphs along the way. But so long as you have the perfect love and perfect trust in your heart, you will come to no harm. You must know that at the very core of your being, the gods and goddesses, the ancient and mighty ones, your ancestors and your guardian spirits, and those mortals who have sworn to guide you along the path, will never ask more of you than you can truly give or you're truly capable of. Even if you feel you cannot, you can. Perfect love and perfect trust, especially in yourself, are your two most powerful allies that act as magical passwords to unlock the door to the mysteries, a door for which there is no key. So long as you keep them pure in your heart, you will, just like the hero, emerge victorious at the end of your journey. How's about that then, boys and girls?
Chapter 1, What's with Wicca?
Ah, yes.
Before setting out on our path, it's probably prudent to have some idea of where the journey will take you. Hence our beginning this book by taking a look at the neo-pagan religion of Wicca. We will provide a brief history along with a quick who's who of the movers and shakers of the craft and their contributions that they have made to shape it into the religion we know today. Finally, we will consider why Wicca, with its roots planted firmly in the past, is becoming increasingly relevant in modern society.
Indeed.
The craft of the wise. As we use this term extensively throughout this book, it's probably a good idea to start by explaining exactly what it is. The craft of the wise, often shortened to just the craft, derives its title from the same Anglo-Saxon Wicca, which gave rise to the name Wicca, as you'll learn later in the chapter, means wise one or witch. The word craft implies particular skills and knowledge, usually learned over a period of time. Although the title Wicca and the craft of the wise are largely interchangeable, we have a strong affinity for the latter, as it subtly conveys the need for dedication and study to gain the skills and knowledge required to effectively practice your craft. What exactly is Wicca?
I hear you ask.
Wicca per se is defined as a neo-pagan religion, although some would say that it's far more than a mere religion, and to describe it as such actually denigrates the craft.
You could argue.
Nonetheless, there can be no denying the fact that Wicca has become officially recognized as a religion by governments the world over. Depending upon your viewpoint, that designation might be for better or worse, but it does at least offer some degree of protection from religious discrimination under the law, or at least in theory. Your mileage may vary. Unfortunately, being legally entitled to practice your religion is no guarantee that you will not be subject to discrimination. Sometimes it's best to apply wisdom contained within the witch's pyramid, to know, to will, to dare, to keep silent, and know when to keep your mouth shut, and your personal beliefs just that, personal. Now that we've established that Wicca can be properly described as a neo-pagan religion, we come to what makes Wicca what it is, and how it differs from other pagan religions. It certainly would not be unreasonable observation to say that there are many great different flavors of Wicca.
Oh, heck yeah.
But rather than get bogged down in the mind-boggling array of differences, let us try to focus on the similarities. There are many variants in other religions too. Within Christianity, there are Catholics and Methodists and Lutherans and Anglicans and Protestants and Baptists and Evangelists and Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses and Seventh-day Adventists and many, many more.
Yes.
One could probably write a book about the differences between these faiths, but they all have one thing in common: the belief in Christ. So what's the common thread running through Wicca? What are its similarities? While there will always be exceptions, it would be reasonably accurate to describe Wicca as an earth-based, following nature, polytheistic, more than one god or goddess, neo-pagan, new pagan religion. There are some words here that warrant further explanation.
She just did it.
We've already discussed religion, but what of neo-paganism? The prefix neo comes from the Greek neos, meaning new. Hence, neo-pagan could be interpreted as a new or revised form of paganism. We are then brought to the word pagan. It should be made clear that the terms pagan and Wiccan do not mean the same thing.
They definitely don't.
Certainly all Wiccans are pagan, but not all pagans are Wiccan. The word pagan was originally a Latin term Romans used during early Christianity as a derogatory term for people who lived outside of the cities, country dwellers, who knew naught of civilization and then the fashionable new religion. Similarly, the term heathen also originally referred to folks who dwelled on the heath, although this word is now more commonly used to describe followers of the Nordic neo-pagan or reconstruction traditions such as Asatru. Despite its original use, the Roman slur seems to have stuck for a great many followers of the revealed religion. The term pagan has since come to refer to almost any spiritual belief or practice outside of the scope of the mainstream Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. However, this usage is kind of a gross simplification, as there are more than 5,000 religions or spiritual practices in the world today, few of which would really identify themselves as pagan.
It's true. It's true.
I'm just wondering how we
You want me to carry on
like I wanted to try to get
to chapter 1,
to
maybe chapter 3.
to page 53.
We could probably do that. We could probably do that. Yeah.
So we'll
could.
see how you go.
So do you want me to carry on?
Yeah, we'll go back and forth a few pages.
So polytheistic and polytheism simply refer to the practice of honouring many gods, as Lisa said earlier. Although traditional Wicca could equally be viewed as being duotheistic, insomuch as it honours both the god and the goddess. That said, there are forms of Wicca, such as Dianic Wicca, that honour only the goddess, but that's not what we're going to cover here. I can't. I have the wrong equipment.
Hey.
Within traditional Wicca, the god represents the divine masculine and is typically represented by the sun, whereas the goddess represents the divine feminine and is represented by the moon and or Mother Earth. Rather than an overarching and somewhat vague description, e.g. the divine, it is typically common for Wiccans to honour specific deities within their rites and rituals, particularly in a group setting. Repeatedly working with the same deities can be of great benefit in building a closer working relationship. Though it's covered more deeply in chapter 7, in our tradition we honour Cerridwen, and we put in this book Cernunnos, but it's actually Gwyn ap Nudd. That's the Welsh name we use.
We just didn't want people to go crazy.
So we just let you know that it's Gwyn ap Nudd, all right? It's also worth mentioning that something that continues to remain a source of debate amongst Wiccans, namely whether the deities are gods and goddesses in their own right, i.e. true polytheism, or actually aspects of a single god, goddess, or divine essence, known as henotheism. Don't worry, we're not going to ask you to take sides. As far as we're concerned, this is a matter for your personal conscience and has no bearing on your ability to form a close working relationship with your chosen deities. Having covered the polytheistic, neo-pagan religion part of this description, we now come to the earth-based bit. In essence, this is what truly makes Wicca what it is. As we've discussed, there are many other polytheistic pagan religions that differ widely from Wicca. As you progress along this path, you'll come to realise that there are so many forms of Wicca that differ substantially from each other. However, the common thread that ties them all together is the natural rhythms or cycles of the earth, more specifically the movement of the sun and moon in relation to the earth. We now know from scientific observation that the earth is a spherical planet that orbits around the sun at the centre of our solar system, not a flat patch of ground where the sun rises in one part of the sky and sets in another, as our ancient predecessors once believed.
Yeah, I don't think many flat earthers are Wiccan, but anyway.
You never know. Incidentally, the geocentric, i.e. earth-based model, was the official position of the Catholic Church right up until 1992, when Pope John Paul II officially accepted the findings of Galileo and granted him pardon for the crimes of heresy. Galileo had...
John Paul himself was quite the heretic, I think. Yeah.
Well, it takes a heretic to pardon a heretic. I don't know.
There you go.
All right. Galileo had deduced that the Earth was not the centre of the universe, as the Church had claimed, but was a planet moving around the sun, something he was forced to recant under threat of torture before the Inquisition in 1633.
So it was
How wonderful is it?
1992 before the Catholics said the Earth wasn't flat.
We're going to tell you what you believe. Right, good. Nonetheless, we see from where we're standing, so it makes sense to look at this movement from a geocentric viewpoint. Accordingly, Wicca honours the never-ending dance of sun and moon in constant chase across the sky, the ceaseless ebb and flow of longer days and shorter nights manifest in the endless cycle of the seasons. This Wheel of the Year, as it is known, is celebrated at Sabbats, special ceremonies marking key points throughout the year. The cycles of the moon are celebrated at Esbats, ceremonies honouring a particular phase of the moon in relation to the Wheel of the Year. Although some traditions may only honour the Sabbats, and even that number may vary, as some Wiccan traditions only celebrate the four major ones, this practice is the common thread running through Wicca. So, before we dive into the history of Wicca, it's important we address the subject of witchcraft. Dun dun dun. It's fair to say that even today the word witch strikes fear in the hearts of a good many people. Ever since the late medieval period, when the Church officially recognised the existence of witches and granted full papal approval for the establishment of an inquisition to seek out and eliminate their kind, witches have been the subject of relentless fear-mongering, culminating in a widespread moral panic that spawned the witch trials of the 16th to 18th centuries. Even though the mass hysteria of the burning times has long since passed, witches and witchcraft are still perennial favourites for the writers of horror films to this very day.
The 70s really took a...
Yeah. We apologise if you're one of those people for whom the word witch triggers a deep-seated anxiety, but there really is no way to sugarcoat this. Wicca is modern witchcraft. In common with the theme that all Wiccans are pagan, in our mind, and certainly within our tradition, all Wiccans are witches. On the other hand, however, not all witches are Wiccan. It's certainly possible for someone to practice folk magic or witchcraft without Wicca's religious or spiritual component. But as you progress through this book, you'll see for yourself that it is impossible to follow the path of Wicca without practicing magic. Even if you never cast a spell in your life, the very rites and rituals that form the craft of the wise are acts of natural and sympathetic magic in and of themselves. That said, we've both met more than one person who claimed to be Wiccan, but definitely not a witch. We can only assume the word witch has such negative connotations for them that the denial is the only available option. Denial works for them.
That river in Egypt.
Ah, yes.
All right. History of the craft. Although it draws upon innate wisdom and knowledge, perhaps as old as time itself, it might surprise you to learn that the Wiccan religion we know today is actually quite modern.
That it is.
So it does draw upon wisdom and ancient knowledge, but it is quite modern. There is much debate about who originally coined the term Wicca, but there can be no doubt as to who brought it to the attention of the world in the latter half of the 20th century. An oddly eccentric and rather well-to-do Englishman by the name of Gerald Brasseur
Gardner, yes. I think we can afford to let the blood course more freely.
Gerald Gardner. who lived from 1884 to 1964. He was a Gemini, by the way. It is fair to say that virtually every Wiccan tradition in existence today has its roots in Gardnerian Wicca. For this reason, Gerald Gardner has come to be known as the father of modern witchcraft. Gardner was born to wealthy parents who had a business in the timber trade. The firm, which specialized in the import of exotic hardwoods, had been founded by his father's great-great-grandfather, Edmund Gardner, a fellow who had managed to successfully climb a social ladder to the point where he was awarded the rare honor of becoming Freeman of the City of Liverpool, a title that in the context of the mid-18th century was a rare honor indeed. It recognized that he had escaped the drudgery of serfdom and elevated himself to become a respected member of the landed gentry. Sufficient to say Gerald Gardner was the epitome of old money.
Oh, and that he was.
That is not to say that Gerald's childhood was a particularly easy one, for he was quite sickly and suffered from bouts of acute asthma, a condition seriously exasperated by the polluted atmosphere of the heavily industrial Lancashire in which he lived. The dense winter smog was especially hard for him. In common with wealthy upper-middle-class children of the day, Gardner was largely raised by his nanny rather than his parents. In Gardner's case, it was a young Irish woman by the name of Josephine Maccombie, whom he affectionately called Com. Although there is much conjecture surrounding her true motives, Com offered to take the child to warmer climates in order to ease his suffering, albeit at his father's expense. So, travel they did. So extensively that Gerald never actually received a formal education nor attended school. But being a determined sort, he taught himself to read and write, and did he ever love to read. One of his favorite and most influential books was There Is No Death by Florence Marryat, a book that propounded the immortality of the soul. He found this subject matter captivating. I would say that another common thread with almost every Wiccan is that they believe in reincarnation. Around the turn of the 20th century, Com met her soulmate, David Elkington, in Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, and decided to marry him. Elkington ran a highly successful tea plantation. So it was agreed that the young Gerald should continue to reside with the newly married couple and learn the tea trade. Com and her new husband, David, set up a home in Kandy, a city that, aside from being one of the most spiritually revered places within the Buddhist faith, was also literally right next door to a famous, or depending upon your point of view, notorious, neighbor, Aleister Crowley. Their being neighbors was something that would prove to be highly significant in the coming years. Most all of us who come to this path can, upon reflection, identify the one pivotal point where we began to question all that we've been taught in our formative years and even begin to reject our conditioning. We all kind of come with a you learn what you live core religion, but there's some point when you start to question.
Is that right?
In Gerald Gardner's case, it was at this exact point in his story where we believe he encountered his personal tipping point and began to reevaluate the core tenets of his beliefs. For the sake of expediency, we'll largely gloss over Gardner's working life and fast forward to his retirement when things really got busy. Suffice to say that he had moved in the right circles and rubbed shoulders with some interesting people and gained a strong interest in folklore, history, archaeology, anthropology, and spiritualism. On her husband's retirement from the civil service in Malaya, Gerald's wife, Donna, persuaded them to return to England, where they eventually settled in the village of Highcliffe, Hampshire, on the southern fringe of New Forest. Put a pin there. Gardner quickly found that the colder climate really didn't suit him, and soon he started to develop issues with his health. His doctor suggested that he try nudism.
Get your kit off.
And although Gerald was initially skeptical, he found that it really did cure what ailed him and quickly became a strong proponent for this practice. It was also in Highcliffe that Gerald had a brief flirtation with Rosicrucianism, but quickly became disenchanted with the group's leader. Nonetheless, he struck up a strong friendship with a few of its members of the group who kept to themselves for the most part. He soon learned that these were the members of the New Forest Coven, and believed them to be one of the last surviving covens of an ancient witch cult that predated Christianity. It's probably worth pointing out that this was on about 1939. Witchcraft was still illegal in Britain under the Witchcraft Acts of 1735. Accordingly, the members of the coven very much kept themselves to themselves out of necessity.
Indeed.
Eventually, Gardner won their trust, and on one fateful night in September 1939, he was taken by the coven to the home of old Dorothy Clutterbuck.
It actually wasn't that much older than him, but that's by the by.
Hey. Where he was stripped naked and led through an initiation ritual into the craft. It was partway through this ritual that he'd heard the term Wicca, which he recognized from his studies as Old English to mean witch. Gardner himself did not use the term Wicca to refer to the practice of the New Forest Coven, or even the group he subsequently founded. But it's at the point of his initiation where the word starts to take on some special significance. Following his initiation, Gerald continued to explore other avenues of spirituality. Naturism remained an important practice for him, and he regularly attended a nudist colony near Bricketwood in Hertfordshire. It was here that he met and became close friends with Ross Nichols.
Ross Nichols, eh?
Gardner had become fascinated with Druidry, having recently joined an ancient Druid order, and introduced Ross to the religion. This meeting would prove to be highly significant. Ross Nichols became enraptured with Druidry and went on to become a chairman of the ancient Druid order, branching out to found the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. Now, we don't have it in here, but Ross Nichols studied... thank you.
Thank you so much.
Studied the works of Iolo Morgannwg, and then passed that tradition to Philip Cargone. And then Philip Cargone recently passed the head position to a woman named Emir.
Interesting.
Thanks. I can't read.
It's thanks a relaxing break from all the stress. Well, there you go.
Isn't it
how
nice?
How can you be stressed with our book? You can't.
All right. Do you want to?
I can carry on a bit if you want. Let me have just a little sip.
So we're kind of trying to give
Wet
you the
me whistle.
build-up of the background of how we got to where we are.
Indeed. So at the end of the World War II, Gardner and his wife decided to up sticks from Hampshire and move to Bricketwood. Gerald had purchased the former 4 Acres Naturist Club, of which he used to be a member, along with an adjoining plot of land he renamed 5 Acres. That was brilliant, wasn't it?
Inspired.
Truly inspired. Revolutionary thinking.
All right.
He also, and this is quite
wild,
the story of this, I haven't got time to go into it, but it's amazing. He also acquired a 16th century witch's cottage that he arranged to be dismantled, shipped to, and reassembled on the site. Fearing that the old religion, as he termed it, might die out, he formed his own coven to meet at the witch's cottage in Bricketwood, from where he eagerly started to seek out new members. It was about this time when he reconnected with an old friend he'd met before the war, Arnold Crowther, a performing magician who worked magic with a C, as in pulling a rabbit from a hat, as opposed to high magic with a K, meaning ceremonial magic. Despite Crowther's stage magic, he did also have some serious connections with high magic as well. Crowther introduced Gardner to a friend of his, the occultist Aleister Crowley, the very same person to whom he'd quite literally lived next door to while residing in his adolescent home in Candy.
Always wild synchronicities on the path.
Isn't there? Recognising Crowley's wealth of esoteric knowledge and wishing to glean as much as he could from this venerable high magician, he quickly struck up a friendship. For his part, Crowley believed that Gardner might be able to help revive the ailing British branch of the Ordo Templi Orientis, the OTO, of which Crowley was the head. Accordingly, he raised Gerald to the 4th degree within the order and passed on a veritable trove of information describing their rites and rituals. There was some talk of Gardner becoming head of the British branch to the OTO, but for a number of reasons this did not
want
come
to orient himself to the east.
Yeah. However, Crowley's material did not go to waste. It became, according to those who knew, the basis of Gardner's first book of shadows, Ye Bock of Ye Art Magical. So there. As Gardner's wife Donna had no interest in witchcraft, so we're told, he persuaded Edith Woodcraft Grimes, the member of Woodford Grimes, the member of the New Forest Coven into which Gardner had been initiated, to become the high priestess of his new Bricketwood Coven. Incidentally, the Bricketwood Coven, the very first in the Gardnerian line, being centred in 1946, still exists and is active to this very day, although they no longer meet in the witch's cottage.
Or not.
Who's to say?
There are still some original Gardnerians hanging around.
Before long, Gerald and Edith, whom he referred to by her magical name Dafo, had begun to initiate others into the craft. Nonetheless, Gardner was still deeply concerned that the craft was in perilous decline, and redoubled his efforts to ensure its survival. Given that witchcraft was still illegal, he found himself in a somewhat of a quandary on how best to do this. Eventually, he devised a plan to publicise the craft by writing a book called High Magic's Aid under the pen name of Skyer, which was published by the Atlantis Bookshop in London. Still there.
I think it just celebrated its 103rd anniversary, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a wild bookshop, it truly is.
Crowley and Dion Fortune and
there's lots
Pamela
of
Coleman
interesting
Smith,
people been there.
Yeah.
While ostensibly a work of fiction set in the 12th century, the book details actual magical workings.
All right, so High Magic Aid.
High Magic's Aid. You should read it. You really should. Because considering this guy taught himself to read and write, it's not too shabby,
No.
I have to say. It's got a good plot line. In 1951, the Archaic Witchcraft Act of 1735 was repealed by Parliament, and it was no longer against the law to be a witch. So Gardner started to actively court the press in an attempt to bring renewed vigour to the old religion by generating interest in the craft. Unfortunately, this move was met with disdain bordering on hostility by some members of the New Forest Coven,
They wanted to stay in the closet.
Still very much wanted to keep themselves to themselves. Nonetheless, it did bring Wicca to the attention of a woman by the name of Doreen Valiente, who'd recently attained the ripe old age of 30.
Through her Saturn return, wasn't
having
she?
just endured her first Saturn return.
Yeah.
The planet of restriction and karmic lessons, Saturn takes about 29.5 years to make a complete cycle of your natal chart, an event called a Saturn return. This event marks the point where we reap what we've sown and may result in some difficult life lessons. Even the glyph, which I can't pronounce, looks like a chair. Sit down, because you're going to learn something. It does look like a chair if you don't know. You could draw it in the air for them. Or not.
It just looks like an H.
All right then, with a chair.
A lowercase h.
So, Valiente had developed a deep interest in the occult following the end of World War II, and was familiar with the work of historian, anthropologist, and folklorist Margaret Murray, who had put forward the theory of the existence of a pre-Christian witch cult she termed the Old Religion. On learning that there may still be pockets of this surviving to the very day, Doreen's interest was certainly piqued. She wrote to Gerald, and they began a correspondence that would last for several months before Gardner agreed to meet her. The meeting was to take place at the home of Edith Woodford Grimes, Stafo, in Hampshire, and in the summer of 1953, Doreen Valiente was initiated into the coven by Gerald Gardner. Valiente quickly rose through the ranks to become High Priestess, eventually replacing Daffo, Woodford Grimes, who had become increasingly frustrated by Gardner's constant publicity seeking. Doreen's initiation into Wicca was to be truly a pivotal event, for her contribution to the craft is of immense importance. While Gerald Gardner has been called the father of modern witchcraft, Doreen Valiente has come to be known as its mother. Valiente had an uncanny gift for poetry, recognising the obvious Crowley influence upon Gardner's Book of Shadows.
Oh, this is Crowley.
Ye boke of ye art magical. She took it upon herself to almost completely rewrite it. She replaced much of the arcane and somewhat stuffy language focused on the ceremonial magic component with beautiful and evocative poems that drew more upon the emotional aspect of the craft as well as the nature of nature itself. Some say that Valiente brought a woman's touch to the previously largely misogynistic realm of high magic to create the unique blend of masculine and feminine qualities that form the Wicca we know today.
Force.
Certainly the rites and rituals within our own tradition would not be so emotionally engaging and deeply moving were it not for her. One of her best known pieces is The Charge of the Goddess, a work that is both profoundly moving and deeply magical. There shall ye assemble, ye are fain to learn all sorcery, yet have not won its deepest secrets. To these will I teach things that are as yet unknown. This poem is used by Wiccan groups the world over. In fact, we ourselves often read The Charge of the Goddess as part of our own rites and rituals. We've included the entire poem, by kind permission of the Doreen Valiente Foundation, in Chapter 8. Although this and other pieces of her work, such as the Witch's Chant, also known as the Witch's Rune, and the Witch's Creed, also known as the Wiccan Reed, have become cornerstones of the craft, sadly her name is not so widely recognised, at least as yet. While Gerald Gardner is credited as being the founding father of Wicca, we would respectfully suggest that without the contributions of this incredible woman, Wicca would simply not be where it is today. But why do we call Wicca Wicca? It's worth taking a look at the etymology of the word witch at this point. As far as we can tell, it came into common usage in the early Middle Ages circa 500 CE, when one of the predominant languages of Britain was Anglo-Saxon or Old English. It's quite likely the word existed prior to this point, but we're wandering into the annals of prehistory, and records are decidedly sketchy. At this time, the English language had gender, and so there were two words, the masculine witcha, which is W-I-C-C-A, pronounced witcher, and the feminine W-I-C-C-E, pronounced witch, so witcher and witch. It's commonly thought that the word equates to sorcerer from the Old French sorcière, itself from the medieval Latin sortiaris or sortieris, if I can say it. My Latin is useless, apologies Donna, meaning one who sorts or influences the fates and fortunes. However, given that medieval Latin had very little influence over the Old English of the Anglo-Saxons, we think it's worth digging a little deeper. Consider, if you will, Wicca as in Wicca work, where a knowledgeable and skilled craftsman bends and weaves simple wooden twigs together to create a functional object, such as a basket or a chair. The word Wicca has exactly the same Old English root. Hence, we tend to think the word Wicca is somewhat more appropriately translated as one who influences fate and fortune by bending, shaping, and weaving the very fabric of reality. Should I say that again?
Mm-hmm.
One who influences fate and fortune by bending, shaping, and weaving the very fabric of reality. To achieve this aim requires not just knowledge, but the wisdom of how that knowledge is applied. Wicca truly is the craft of the wise. So in summary, in this chapter, What's with Wicca, we've given you a brief insight into the nature of Wicca and the origins of this natural neo-pagan religion. We've introduced you to just a few of the people who helped the craft on the wise become what it is today. You have learned that although drawing upon ancient wisdom, Wicca itself only really came into being in the latter half of the 19th century. Nonetheless, the craft of the wise encompasses, honours and celebrates the very nature of nature itself. To dedicate oneself to walk upon this well-worn path is to commit to following in the footsteps of those who trod before us, accepting our responsibility for our own actions and learning respect for our Mother Earth and all living things, including those on the path behind us. This is not a journey for the faint-hearted. There will no doubt be times where you question yourself and doubt if it's even worth the effort. For our part, we can only say that it's about the journey, not the destination. And this is the most incredible journey you will ever take. The road may be hard at times, but those ahead of you on the path will always reach back and lend a hand to help you over the hard scrabble. So there.
Okay, chapter 2. This is my little phrase that I say all the time.
Oh, yes, it is.
You see from where you're standing.
And so we've lost our light.
Well, I can still see.
That's good. Unless somebody throws us a super chat, then we'll be in darkness.
We'll be in
and
darkness.
Then light, and then darkness, and then light. I dare you, go on, it'll be
No,
fun.
we'll read by candlelight. Jeez Louise.
I dare you, it's fun, go on.
You
Torment
see from
us.
where you're standing. When folks first come to this path, it's common to see the desire to progress along it as quickly as possible. I want to know all the things. I want to know
them
it
now.
However, as we've said before, it's not the destination that's important, but rather the journey itself. I mean, I learn something all the time.
Me, every day, still.
The path of the craft of the wise is not a laser straight line that can be negotiated at light speed.
It would be
It
unwise.
has many twists and turns, and there are quite a few ups and downs along the way. Within this chapter, we hope to show you that even these are a necessary part of the awakening to the magic, and that there are no shortcuts. Only by personally experiencing the mysteries will you be able to deepen your understanding and broaden your perspective. But before you can experience the mysteries, you must be properly prepared and ready to experience them. You won't even know what you're looking at if you don't know what you're looking at.
What's a mystery?
Please understand that time spent in preparation is never time wasted. You wouldn't want to set out to climb Snowdon on a whim wearing a t-shirt and sneakers.
We have to change that now. It's Uthva.
Yeah.
It's got its Welsh name back. Uthva. Yeah.
So it's all about the journey. Your journey, to be precise. Every witch's journey is unique to them. As much as this is a journey along a well-worn path, it is equally an expedition into the uncharted territory of the innermost reaches of the psyche.
Are you scared yet? You will be.
Journeys of self-discovery are by their very nature unsettling. Sometimes what lies beneath may be deeply troubling and open up old wounds. But it's only by doing so that the necrotic tissue can be excised, allowing for complete healing to take place. We humans are fragile and complex creatures. We are capable of the most beautiful, generous, caring, and selfless acts of love, and equally capable of the most depraved acts of hate, violence, and cruelty. The potential for all of these lies within each and every one of us, which is why journeying within can sometimes be decidedly scary. Perhaps you remember that scene from Star Wars where Luke receives instructions from his Jedi Master Yoda, who tells him to enter an ominous-looking cave. I'm not frightened, declares Luke. Oh, you will be. You will be, asserts Yoda in a particularly sinister manner. Well, why? What's in there? Asks Luke. Yoda responds, only what you take with you. To further paraphrase Yoda's wisdom, if a witch you'll be, then journey you must. You have to find your place of peace and power and become comfortable not merely within your own skin, but within your own psyche as well. One of the most significant mysteries that in order to truly see inside yourself, you have to look from outside.
It's true.
We've said it before and we'll say it many times again. You see from where you're standing. When it comes to objective introspection, you are likely to find your view somewhat occluded if you're standing in your own way. So consider the following analogy. We're standing in a beautiful forest. Look at this magnificent forest. Isn't it just amazing? And you say, what forest? All I can see is this huge tree right in front of me. Well, maybe if you take a chainsaw and cut it down, I'll be able to see the forest. This approach is definitely not going to help you. May the gods forbid such foolishness. But if you were to cut down the tree, you would still find your view obstructed by the other trees. Should you continue to cut down trees, eventually your view will become unimpeded, but you will no longer have a forest to see. You must change your perspective by actually moving to a place where you can see the forest from a distance. For only by detaching yourself from the situation that seeks to occupy the entirety of your attention can you make an objective assessment of what you're actually dealing with. Having learned to recognize the magnificence and splendor of the forest from afar, you will then be able to re-enter the woodland and truly experience its beauty from within. Your new appreciation of the forest being aided by a deeper understanding of its nature, gained from seeing it as the whole. It will no longer be a bunch of trees that obscure your view, but rather a colony of sentient beings who are aware of your presence within. Don't be surprised if they actually start talking to you.
Can I throw in a tiny interjection, because there's a footnote there. There's a fantastic book which I'd love you guys to read if you get a chance. It's by Peter Vollenben, The Hidden Life of Trees, What They Feel, How They Communicate, Discoveries from a Secret World. It's a really, really fascinating book.
He's an Australian guy.
No, he's German.
Oh, I thought it was Melbourne.
That's where the book's published, but he is German.
He's German.
He's German, I believe.
Anyway, that's the book about the mycelium and the structure of
it's amazing.
How trees communicate, all that kind of stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Don't be surprised if they start talking to you.
Yeah.
And the same is true of yourself. You must learn to recognize the traits that hamper your progress on the path, something more readily achieved from an external perspective. It's often said, if we could only see ourselves as others see us. While this may be somewhat helpful, it is not a perfect solution. Things may not always be as they appear at first sight, and a purely external perspective lacks context. One cannot fully appreciate the true nature of the forest until they've actually walked into the woods and experienced it from the inside as well. You need to acquire the skills necessary to be able to make an objective assessment of yourself, and this is absolutely key, to make this assessment without judgment.
It's hard.
For most folks, this means radically changing the way we look at things, especially ourselves. We need to rethink our thinking, a process that begins with a serene acceptance. We must accept that our traits are neither good nor bad, they are simply traits. We must consciously choose not to struggle against ourselves, as internal conflict is a battle that can't be won. All too often we find fault with ourselves and fight to repress, ignore, or otherwise subdue these undesirable traits. But this is almost always an exercise in futility. If you have an injured knee and need to run a race, hacking off your leg isn't going to help you run faster.
True.
Perhaps the most important thing in learning to look at things in a completely different way is actually learning to look. To paraphrase Sherlock Holmes, most of us see, but we do not observe. Within our tradition, a very important part of the training and work of an initiate is focused upon developing the acuity of the senses. One of the ways we've found to be most effective at getting folks to observe rather than to just see is having them focus on a particular color and make mental note of whenever they encounter it. At the end of the day, we ask that they recount their experiences. When and where did you see that particular color? What were the circumstances? What feelings did it invoke? What else did you notice? And things like that. We strongly recommend that every aspiring witch should keep a special book where you write down notable thoughts, dreams, feelings, events, and other general oddities and synchronicities. In our tradition, it's kindly known as the Weirdness Journal.
You gotta have your weirdness.
In modern society, we humans have become increasingly distant from nature. We live, work, and travel in comfortable, heated, air-conditioned environments unaffected by the changing of the seasons. Artificial light transforms the length of our day so that they're no longer constrained by rising and setting of the sun. Even our imagination has suffered on the relentless onslaught of television, computer games, virtual reality, social media, all of which constantly strive for our attention. Our isolation from the natural world is almost complete. In order to awaken to the magic, one has to first awaken their senses, and there is no better way to do this than connecting to nature. Go take a look at a tree, but don't just look at it. Observe it. Look closely at the bark on its trunk. Study the lands, cracks, and grooves of its surface. Contemplate the patterns that they make. What do they make you think of? How do they make you feel? You should repeat this process and revisit the tree at different times of the year. Notice how it changes with the seasons. If you can go back to the tree exactly 1 year after you first met, look closely at what differences there are and what has stayed the same. But you notice things you didn't see the last time. Repeat this process as often as you can with almost everything you encounter until it becomes a habit. Gradually, you'll start to awaken your senses and see things that have been hidden in plain sight. Remain mindful that this is a process, and processes take time. Exactly how much time is impossible to say, as it varies widely between individuals. However, there's one thing we can say certainly. There is no shortcut, and impatience will only impede your progress.
It's true that, isn't it?
You skipped a page.
I did.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
There. The harder you push. You want to do that?
Sure. The harder you push against the door that has no key, the stronger it will resist you. It is not possible to force your way through the door that leads to the mysteries. You simply have to allow it to open. Perhaps one of the most effective remedies to impatience, aside from serene acceptance, is to have realistic expectations. As we said before, one cannot learn the mysteries, for they cannot be taught. They may only be experienced, and experience itself may only be gained over time. This is, after all, the craft of the wise. Wisdom is not attained without knowledge gained from experience. When it comes to knowledge, there are things we know, and there are things we know we don't yet know. But it's wisdom that allows us to understand there are many, many more things we don't even know we don't know. We humans think we're really smart. Heck, we can split the atom, build supercomputers, and send rockets into space. But seldom do we accept that there are things we simply don't know we don't know. Instead, we attempt to make things fit the constructs of our understanding, rather than allowing our understanding to be broadened. You might as well get used to the idea that get-rich-quick schemes don't work. If you were just handed everything and didn't have to work for it, you most probably would not respect it, and you most certainly would have been robbed of all of the aha moments that go along with uncovering, discovering, and reclaiming your place on this
I
well-worn
love
path.
the ahas.
Aren't they? That's why we do it. We mentioned at the start of this chapter, the path is not a straight one. If anything, it's more of a circle than a line between 2
A
points.
spiral.
Certainly it's cylindrical, for it follows the wheel of the year. But it would be, as Lisa says, more accurate to describe it as a spiral. When it comes to learning, repetition is key. The more times we do something, the more familiar it becomes. Everyone has the potential to learn, regardless of ability. It all comes down to desire, dedication, and commitment. Assuming they had the desire, absolutely anyone could learn to play the piano. Imagine, if you will, the piano teacher coming to your home and telling you to press middle C. On the first day, you have no idea what middle C even looks like, and then you find out the note actually looks more like the lowercase letter B. The piano teacher tells you that your homework is to press middle C every day and listen to what it sounds like. By the second day, you already know exactly what key to press. Maybe by the third or fourth day, you can even hear the tone of middle C in your head before you even enter the room where the piano resides. The more you practice, the better you'll become. The same is true of the path. When you first set off, things are decidedly unfamiliar, somewhat bewildering, and sometimes even downright strange. But each turn of the wheel is an upward spiral where you can look back at where you were previously and apply the knowledge gained over the subsequent turns. You see from where you're standing. So in summary, in this chapter, we've explained that the path of the craft of the wise is a mystery tradition. You don't know what you don't know, and we can't tell you. You have to experience the mysteries for yourself in order to truly understand them. We've also told you that it takes time to gain experience and that you need to be patient, particularly with yourself. Impatience leads to frustration, which causes people to give up. We've had people who were learning get frustrated with us and quit, just saying, "Can't you just tell us everything?" So, again, try looking at it like learning to play the piano. You'll never be able to do a command performance if you don't know where middle C is. But don't ever doubt that you have the potential to learn and in time become adept in your craft. Repetition is key, for the more you do something, the better you become. The renowned virtuoso violinist Pablo de Sarasate said, "For 37 years I practiced 14 hours a day. Now they call me a genius." In short, ability comes from desire, dedication, and commitment. Just have an open mind, cut yourself some slack, and be patient. You see from where you're standing.
Okay. So I see Anna's come on and said, I didn't know about this. Well, this morning, what we asked for were 10 super chats, and if we reached our goal, we would start a book club. So we're being rather snooty and starting with our own book.
Yeah, we didn't know about this until today.
So we've done about an hour's worth, and we'd like now to offer you some interaction.
I think that would be good.
And then if we reach our goal, when we reach our goal, the days that we reach our goal, Monday, for Magical Monday, when we reach our goals, we will do another book club.
Yes.
So we'll work along through this book, and then, like I said, we have all kinds of other things planned that'll be learning, teaching, and exploring all three branches of the subjects of the craft, right? We'll look at some
High magic.
High magic.
We should do high magic,
Dion
probably.
Fortune. Yes, Dion Fortune novels we'd love to read. Some things on druidry, that we have some great druidry things. Certainly maybe Mabinogi. There's all kinds of stuff we could do. But it'll be like our treat to you for supporting the channel.
Yes.
So does anybody have any questions or input so far? I see something by Juniper. I think she's talking about the middle pillar exercise.
I just started working on my middle pillar exercise and the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram again. I stopped doing it for almost a year. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. It is, as we just said, repetition is key. The more you do something, the more comfortable you get with it, the more familiar you get with it. And one of the things, I mean, we mentioned about connection with trees and forests and really going out and trying, to connect with nature, to connect with a tree. Ideally, if you can do it over the course of a year.
Because you see the cycles
you'll
and changes.
see it change. And it's so nice to go back on the same day a year later, a year and a day later, if you will, to see what you see differently now at the same time in the same place. But what's changed? Because I bet you just that process of continual observation, you'll start to see more. And it really is that.
And maybe you do it with the wheel. Maybe you do it with the solar sabbats or the agricultural sabbats.
Do it with everything.
Do those, go have a look.
Do it with everything.
But yeah, does anybody have any questions or any input? Do you want to know anything about what we've said so far?
Please, because we're here for you, and there's enough of you watching, so don't be shy. Yeah, we always say this, that honestly, please don't feel that you are asking a silly question, because there is no such thing as a silly question.
If you have the question, probably others do too.
Absolutely, more than likely. And the only dumb question is the one that doesn't get asked.
There you go.
So, far away, you can literally ask us anything, and we'll tell you if we can't tell you. We'll tell you, the query.
Ancient Chinese secret.
The query will be answered by the querent.
There you go.
That's one, one you're gonna have to go work out yourself. But
I think everybody's gone to bed.
do you think? No, they're still watching. I can see they haven't run away. They haven't run away.
Well, there's hardly any likes. What's going on?
Well, people need to mash that like button then. Mash the like button. Do it now. Unless you've all gone off or you've been supping on a cider, which I am, but I haven't supped on that much yet. So,
right.
What do you think? Should we call it a night then, or do you want us to do more? Tell us.
I think we should save another chapter for another time, because it's into the next section of things, the elementals.
It is really, but the introduction, the road home and the introduction, and then the first two chapters are really key. Yes, I know you're there. That's good. We know you're there. You're just not saying anything, but that's okay. You don't have to say anything, but it always makes us feel better when people do interact.
Well, I want to make sure we're doing things right. All right, so I guess we'll see you next week, provided we get our super chats.
Yes.
If not, we'll see you the next time we do get our super chats on Magical Monday.
That's right.
And the next chapter we'll be reading is
Elementary,
my dear witchling.
Yes.
So that will be all about the elements. No surprise there.
It is, but there's a method to this book, and hopefully it makes sense. And I don't know how many of you guys have actually sat down and read it, but it's also it's nice for us to go over it, because it's been a while since we read it.
Yeah, but we pretty much teach it in Craft of the Wise. So
there is that. There is that.
All
but
right.
it's nice. I'd buy this book.
All right, here Cass has something to say.
I wanted to read this again, so this really works out. Well, yeah, because this offers more. The idea of the book club is
we can chat back and forth.
You chat, you ask questions. There you go. So now here we've finally got. I think there's a satellite delay. This is what I always find when I'm working by myself.
Okay.
All right. So how do you navigate the opening of your awareness, seeing things previously unseen, to distinguish projection from intuition? What a wonderful question, Yolf. What a wonderful question. Do you want to...
Can you read it again?
Yeah, of course.
How?
Right. How do you navigate the opening up of your awareness, seeing things previously unseen, to distinguish projection from intuition?
Okay.
In other words, are you seeing something you think you want to see?
Right. Well, we all interpret things in the language that we speak. And sometimes you're right. That is skewed. Or we think it's just our own mind and not our higher mind. So first of all, do that little bit of forest and trees thing. And think, is this something brand new? Or is this something I've seen before, maybe in a different way? And then, it's like learning to read the tarot or to do psychic work. Many times we'll second guess ourselves and we'll think, is this real? Because this is what I really wanted to see. And I tell folks that reading for yourself is very difficult.
Can't take yourself out of it, that's all.
Because it's hard to, you know what you want to see. But I think when we start to get those synchronicities and those aha moments, things get clearer and clearer the more we can trust, right? So a lot of times in the beginning, we don't trust ourselves. And I had mentioned that my niece is to the point where she's asking to see a sign for something. So I had been really uptight and said, are we going to be okay? And if we're going to be okay, I want to see a polar bear.
Not something you typically see.
And
anyway,
for
right?
several weeks, I did not see a polar bear. And then I finally saw a meme hysterically of a polar bear in Greenland
Chasing someone.
an orange
Person.
Velveeta.
Person is the right word.
So that was like a double answer that it is outside of me and this sign is showing me that it's real. So that's one of the things you could do. You might get something and think, okay, as a sign that this is real, show me XYZ. And then you can't dispute when they show you XYZ. But I think that it is hard in the beginning. Even me now at, some 30 some odd years on the path, I'll step back sometimes and go, wait, is that what I wanted to see happen? Or is that what's really being predicted? So then sometimes you could use somebody else's interpretations, right? You have this situation, you think you have seen psychically the answer. You could use a medium, a tool like the tarot or dominoes or whatever else speaks to you, and use the person who wrote the book as the interpreter and say, is this real? And then read what the book says as kind of an objective perspective.
One of the things I'll share, actually one of Lisa's first explorations, when we were first kind of getting to know each other, getting together kind of thing, we spent the first 10 years of our relationship commuting between here and Wales. And this was the time, just at the very outset, we're starting to get into Welsh spirituality, discovering the Mabinogi and the Battle of the Trees and stuff like that. And speaking particularly about trees, we had a number of trees on our property. We also had a small little stream, a tributary to the River Severn, the Kaibitra, running through it. And Lisa one day decided to just go put her back against one of the trees by the side of our little babbling brook and just let herself slip into, I guess, a hypnagogic state. I would be, I'm probably trying to put words in your mouth here, but sure enough, it asked her,
clearly heard.
Can you tell the difference between the wind and the rain? Or
wind and the water.
Oh, the wind and the water, right.
Because the wind in the leaves sounded very close to the water babbling in the brook. And I realize now that they are both expressions of the passive elements. But at that time it was, is this real? Did I really just hear that? And then I said, okay, I'm going to really see if I can distinguish those two different sounds between the breeze and how it works in the trees and the water and how you hear it on the stones.
It's kind of amazing just to do
keep a weirdness journal, man.
That weirdness journal is so important.
Yeah.
There is nothing that happens by accident, and if it jars you, it's particularly important, If it really wants to be seen, if it comes at you and it's like a piece of kloober around the side of the head, Write that down.
And sometimes we don't understand the message
Yep.
or the feeling for years. When I was taking shamanism, my power animal, deer, came out and wrote down this symbol and said, Mary had a little lamb, get it? And ran away. And I journaled that incident. And it was some 5 years later when I took Reiki that I learned about Christ's connection to Reiki and healing, and realized that the symbol she had drawn was the top of the master symbol in Reiki.
Wow.
But it was 5 years before I discovered what it really meant. So it isn't a quick, you arrive at your journey on the bullet train.
You can't.
It's more like you're, walking, and watch out for the potholes.
That's not to say that there aren't some amazing, momentous, revelatory experiences.
Oh my God!
There are. Sometimes you'll get something like a bolt from the blue, but more often than not, it is a gradual process of getting back in touch with our inner nature, and we're so good at, we have viscerally isolated ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We're out of touch. Oh, here's a weirdness journal. Ideal.
And again, that which you are seeking is causing you to seek. So you may be having more and more of these odd experiences and thinking, oh, well, I'm just dreaming that, or I'm just seeing that, or I'm just thinking that because I am seeing from where I'm standing. But it's true. Maybe you wouldn't have had that thought or that vision or that idea if you hadn't taken the steps to get where you are. So.
Mm-hmm. And Yoffen, in another subject, if you want to come and test your gear out, just fire us a text, because we've had the vacuum out today.
So we're ready for you to come.
So you can come now.
Yoff is helping us. He's going to pretty much help host and bring some equipment for the karaoke on April 18th. And Lori, I do hope you're feeling up for it. They have handicap parking, and they have really good seating.
And it's so easy to get in. It's all on the level, so it's great.
Yeah, there's no stairs or anything like that, so you'll have a good time.
And you'll have to get me very, very drunk if you want me to sing anything. That's all
No,
I'm
I
saying.
can't drink, so I just don't want to be the only one singing. But I think there's going to be some fun rabble rousing. I know Courtney said she was going to try to sing a Billy Idol song.
I can see her doing that. I can see it doing. I think this is going to be fun. But that's
well, it's
if you're local.
Yeah,
you know where we are.
So we're going to have some fun.
All right. Anything else, guys? Because I think we've been here for nearly an hour and a half now. It's probably about time we got something to eat. Or whatever.
I baked cake today. So.
Oh, well, there you go. Let them eat cake.
Let them eat cake.
Let them eat cake, apparently. So, anything else before we disappear? Because otherwise we're going to go forth, come fifth, and win a cup.
All right, witches.
Our witchlings.
Our witchlings.
Yes.
Get ready for the new moon. We'll see
gosh.
you Wednesday night in the Academy for our moon magic through your natal chart.
We seem to be living online at the moment, don't we?
Well, it's all good, isn't it? Lori Mintz says...
I may bring my wheelchair to a sit-in. Well, you certainly can.
That sounds like a good idea.
It's got full handicap access. It really is. Everything's all good. I am since the classes Craft of the Wise. I am since the classes Craft... Okay. He's probably on about his weirdness journal. So he's had a weirdness journal
since Craft of the Wise.
The problem is, what we don't realise is, and this is why I think sometimes we scratch our heads. Not everybody's watching it exactly the same time, because they throw bloody adverts in, don't they? So Yoff might be 30 seconds behind.
Gotcha.
He might be. So, we reply to him and he goes, 30 seconds of satellite delay. And 30 seconds...
I'll text you tomorrow. Okay, cool.
Perfect.
All right.
All right. So, thank you so much.
We're
thank
very
you so
excited.
much for you guys joining us. We loved it. It was one of... So what are we going to do for a goal? And she said, why don't we do book club? Huh?
I mean, a lot of people... This is for public,
yes, it
not
is.
Academy.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have said they've seen people recommending Simply Wicca on Reddit and in other places, because a lot of the books are written for eclectic stuff, right? For, just go form your own coven, blah, blah, blah. And there's not a lot of snooty, traditional witchcraft stuff out there. And we do want to keep the old ways alive.
We are.
We're not trying to
unfortunately
exclude
Wiccan
people.
snobs
We're
a
trying
little bit.
to educate people.
Yeah,
You know?
no, we don't mean to be exclusionary, but there is. You must be willing to face the assay, you yourself, and that's the thing. You know, there's so many people think, well, can't I just go buy this? Can't I just get that? What can I get my next? What do you call it? Attunement. I want my next attunement.
How can I
please.
make my
What?
boyfriend leave his wife for me? All these kind of things.
Yeah, no, it don't work like that.
Yeah, but anyway,
It's your journey. Nobody can have it but you. And you're only robbing yourself if you try to do shortcuts. You know, it's this is life changing stuff, and it's beautiful.
It's your
and
life's
amazing.
journey,
Yeah,
right? Once you're a witch kind of thing.
exactly. All right, guys, it's probably time we went forth, came fifth, and won a cup or whatever, was it?
I don't know. I think
I
I'm
don't
going to
know.
go to bed. I'm really tired. Tomorrow's another day of it, isn't
That's
it?
another day. Yeah,
Yeah.
We've got. I know we've got a bit of admin to do
Yeah,
before we
some
can
more
turn
admin.
in for the night. So, guys, thank you so
All
much.
right.
It's
Thank
been
you,
fun.
and
hope
hopefully
you liked
we
it.
get to see you again soon.
All right, don't forget,
Peace.
mash that like button. Tell your friends all about it. Okay, and we'll see you again soon. Have an amazing rest of your evening.
Bye.
Bye.